Hey everyone, it's Ka. Welcome back to another video, and today I will be discussing how to choose your medium. This should be a fun discussion because if you don't know, I am a multimedia artist and I primarily do digital art, drawing, painting, and clay sculpture. And I can morph those into one or mix two at a time. I love mixing mediums. However, I'm not going to talk about that specifically today. I'm going to talk about how to choose one and how do you know a medium is right for you. So, starting off with my first point is textiles and textures of certain mediums. How do you know that they're for you? If you're on the narrow, spicy side, which if you don't know, I am, some mediums could be a little annoying to work with because you don't like the feeling, you don't like how it looks on certain things, or how you apply it doesn't seem right. It's very important to consider these things. For example, working with charcoal, it gets very messy, and I highly recommend to not wear anything white when you're working with charcoal. But it is very powdery, it is very drying of your hands, and it gets all over the place. If that is something that you can deal with, or if it seems fun to you that you can get messy, then maybe that is the right path for you. However, if you're very neat and you don't like getting anything on your clothes when working with art, that's probably not the path for you. When working with clay, the same thing. It has a lot of squishiness to it when you apply water to it, or it may be a little rough on your hands if it's too dry. That type of stuff you want to take into consideration when you're creating. How much can you tolerate with physical type of mediums versus 2D? Same thing with paints. Even if you feel like you're not using your physical body to apply paint, maybe you are, depending on how you create, but even like thickness of like the paint, like acrylic and watercolor, vastly different, even though they're water-based paints. How do you feel about how each of them dries, how long it takes to dry, and how it looks on your paper or canvas, board, etc.? But those are just a few examples. I'm sure y'all can think of other mediums that you're thinking of trying out, and I would highly recommend thinking about there are certain aspects and how you would go about creating with them. Do you feel that it fits for you in terms of how you're going to use them? Which leads me to my second point is pacing of the mediums. And yes, all art takes time. However, each medium is very different in terms of how long they take, whether it's a drawing process or how much work you have to put in for a specific medium. For example, if you're working with thread or yarn, that may take a few days depending on how big your piece is or how tedious and how tight knit you have to use that type of medium. If you feel you don't have a lot of patience with that, that may not be the right fit for you because it takes a lot of meticulous and time consuming work to do stuff like that. Or again, using clay as an example, it dries out fairly fast. It may be a little too fast for you if you're typically a slower worker or you need a little bit more time in between to create pieces. Then I'd probably say consider watercolor because you gotta wait in between layers to continue painting if that's more your speed. So again, art overall takes time. However, the pacing of each material is drastically different than others, or at least a little bit different. Some could have a little bit of similarities, for example, acrylic paint and watercolor, because they're both water-based. They may take a bit of time to dry or a little bit of time to dry, but in comparison to acrylic and oil paint takes significantly longer than acrylic paint to dry. And understanding these mediums and how long they take, whether again it's drying time or execution time, like how fast you can get it done versus how slow you are, etc., should be considered when picking out your main medium or mediums that you think you'd work with the most. My next point is understanding 2D and 3D art with these specific mediums and how you execute your piece. When I was in college and I was taking a life sculpting class, my professor told me specifically that sculpting a human face is so different than drawing a human face. And coming from a person that started off with drawing portraiture or drawing the human before getting into sculpture, I can say it is drastically different if you don't understand perspective and if you don't understand how the human face is in all different angles when you're drawing first. But for some people, they may not even get how they can translate the human face from a clay type of material to maybe something like charcoal onto a flat surface. Some people are just wired to understand 3D forms better than 2D and vice versa. So I would experiment with both 2D and 3D to see what your strength is in that. And that can even include 3D printing because I personally do not understand 3D printing to this day, but I understand clay pretty well. So I opt to do clay versus 3D printing. But if that is something you still want to learn regardless, like if you struggle with a certain medium, you can always practice it. I'm not saying you can't. I'm sharing this point so you know what mediums you're very strong in they can probably use for the most part. And lastly, I forgot to put this point in, but whatever medium you do decide or what mediums you decide to choose as your main things to use, I am hoping that you're considering how enjoyable it is as well. Because you can be good at a certain medium and acknowledge that you're really good at a medium, but ask yourself, do I enjoy this? Is also very important. For example, I'm pretty good at pastels and using pastels on like some type of waxy paper. I forgot what the type of paper was. You can let me know in the comments because it's been a while and I don't feel like researching it or looking it up right now. But I'm pretty good at doing pastels on that type of medium paper. However, it's not really the most enjoyable for me to do, even though I could do it. Or another example is I'm pretty good at drawing. I may not be the best, but it also makes me happy. I enjoy drawing, even though my strongest form of art would be clay sculpture. I still like that too, but I'm not going to give up drawing just because I'm good at one specific thing at the period. I create, yes, due to my skill sets. It does help when I'm trying to put out a portfolio. However, I create because I like it. I use the mediums because I like working with them and I enjoy the process of that said medium. So, in conclusion to this video, the overall thing I'm trying to say is test out all types of mediums if you haven't already and explore with these different mediums to see how you feel about them and if you'd ever use them again or not. Who knows? Maybe you were so caught up in, let's say, colored pencils and you thought, oh, I'm only going to do colored pencils for the rest of my life. And then you try out a different medium and then you have a whole avenue of art you can possibly do that's not related to colored pencils. Or maybe you can incorporate colored pencils with said medium depending on what it is. And I know it's a bit late in the video, but I'll put another disclaimer. People can choose what they want to choose. I know a lot of people say it's not good to branch out into different mediums, specifically in the art world if you're trying to be professional. And with that, I do understand. I understand where they're coming from because they want you to be very strong in one specific medium. And I'll share that. That's still true in the professional world, so take that as you will. However, as a multimedia artist, I'm not going to stop mixing mediums just because of that standard. I still create for me versus creating for other people. If the professional world wants to see me use one specific type of medium for my art, I will only submit a portfolio with that type of medium and art for the position that I'll be applying to. But I'm not going to apply that way of creating and submitting artwork into my personal life because, yes, art is used in the professional world, but it's also used for my personal life. And I don't want to mingle both of those together when it comes to mediums because to me it's very important with the mediums that I use. I'm sorry if I'm yapping a little too much. You can let me know in the comments if I am. But if you made it this far, I want to let y'all know I appreciate you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for giving me 10 minutes of your time and day to just listen and possibly watch me create on here. It means a lot to me. And with that being said, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Send me a comment about anything that I said that may have resonated with you, or any comments that you have. I would love to hear them. And I'll see you in the next video. See ya!